I'm live. This is Math 75, Section 6.2, Part 2. And I wanted to start out with an overview. I thought about what we talked about in the first video, and I realized I wasn't sure I liked the way I approached it in the first video, which was very mathy. So I'm going to try another approach. It's also going to be kind of mathy because I'm kind of mathy. But perhaps it would help if Spider comes along and just kind of goes, yay. So it'll be math, but with spiders. That's got to make everything better, right? So what are we going to do? Well, I want to start out with the question, why does compound interest work like this? And well, you're like what? And I will get to that. If you haven't just been watching a video on compound interest, you might be thinking, okay, what's the formula? I'll get to it. But what I want to start with is not compound interest, but simple interest. Simple interest means that you're calculating interest just once. Compound interest is a bunch of little simple interests all stuck together. So if you compound your interest every year, you do simple interest every year and string them together. If you compound every month, so you calculate the interest every month, like in a bank account or for your credit card, then you're doing simple interest for the month and then stringing all the months together. So compound interest comes from simple interest. They are not entirely separate things. Simple interest is just the first step. So simple interest says you take whatever you started with, your principal or your present value, and you add that to this calculation, principal times interest rate times time. Now, if we're talking about an annual compounding, that means T is 1. So that makes our future value equal to P plus PR. So far, so good? Okay, Spider's going to slide down with us. Ooh, look at this. Spider moves and the paper moves. I know. I have achieved heights of YouTuber mad skills that I never dreamed of. This has blown my mind. So just talking at my computer monitor, looking at everything backwards, it's amazing. So future value, I'm going to look at this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out the P. P times the quantity 1 plus R. This is still simple interest for 1 year. It's exactly the same formula, except T equals 1, and I factored out a P. So at the beginning of the year, I have P. At the end of year 1, my future value, so that just means the value at the end of that year is equal to P times 1 plus R. Now, I know everyone hates subscripts, but this is like a little name tag. If you've got a bunch of people all running around who look very similar, like S's, then if we have a little name tag, oh, by the way, I'm future value from year 1, right? So it helps to identify which is which. And if you've ever, if you have a bunch of friends named Paul, maybe you know their last names, or maybe you know Paul who likes to play hacky sack and Paul who likes to cook eggs. And I'm not going to come up with any more examples because they're getting weirder, but you know what I mean. All the Pauls out there totally understand what I'm talking about. So it is good to identify your S's. So I'm going to say S sub 1 is the end of year 1. So the beginning of year 2. So this is year 1. Beginning of year 2. So this is all compound interest. So I figured out the interest from the first year. Now, my current principal, the money I have, is S sub 1, which is P times 1 plus R. Because at the end of the year, that's how much I had. So it just kind of rolls over. In fact, the end of the first year and the beginning of the second year are basically, they happen at the same time or 1 second apart, depending on your perspective on these things. So what I have at the end is exactly what I have at the beginning. So then the question is, if I want to know the end of year 2, in general, my future value is whatever I started with times 1 plus r. Well, for us in year 2, what did I start with? Well, the principal that I started with, this guy, oh, Smearland, oh my gosh, that was just a mess of smeariness. Sorry about that. Let me draw this in first. See, this is, if I were truly a professional, I would draw in the yellow first and then no smearing. In place of the P, which is what's here, this is the P, I have S1. So in place of P, I have whatever I ended up with at the end of the first year. Which was what I started with in the beginning times 1 plus r. So I end up with P times 1 plus r. That's the year 1. Times 1 plus r, year 2. So what ends up happening is every year I'm going to tack on another 1 plus r. That's the interest we earn. We get the amount back. 1 means I get the money back, and r means I get some more interest. We need both of these things. You need to get your initial investment back and earn interest on top of it. So every year we're going to tack on one of these guys. So at the end of the second year, we're going to have 2 up there. At the end of the third year, there would be, the exponent would be 3. Woohoo? Woohoo. I don't like any of this. I'm going to have to